everybody, in this video today we are talking about gesso. For those of you that don't know what gesso is a primer used on a pager surface. It actually works very much like paint. When you're painting your house, you put a primer on just to make the paint stick better and for images to just adhere better. And it's a nice finished project when you use a primer, which is the same as using gesso. So I'm going to show you a few of our gessos. This is Golden, and it's a black gesso. This is one of the ones I use. Golden is a great brand name, and it's awesome. It's an opaque acrylic primer, basically, to describe that for you. This is a Dina Wakley Media, the clear gesso, and it's an artist quality primer, and I'll show you a little bit about that. This is also Dina Wakley. This is also a black gesso, and this is artist quality primer. This is from Prima, which is Finnabar, and it's Art Basics. It's a heavy gesso, and it's a black. And I will show you what a heavy gesso is compared to the other two. And this is Demco. Demco is a Canadian company, and it's an oil and acrylic gesso, and I use this a lot, and I have the economy size because I go through a lot of gesso. So basically what I want to tell you about gesso is it's a glue binding with chalk and, in these cases, pigment, right? So it's awesome. It can dilute with water. The heavy gesso can be used to cover things up. With this too, it also takes a little bit longer because it is heavier and it is thicker. So yeah, the drying effect on this takes longer, so just be aware of that. Clear gesso, it works great on patterned items. So if you're covering something up, you're using patterned paper or an image or a stamp, clear gesso is awesome if you want to put something on because it will not cover your image, as we're using one of these other ones will. Also, one great thing about using the white gesso, which I really like, is if you have a very patterned paper, you can use this gesso to kind of dilute it a little bit, you know, to make it not so busy, not so bright. So I've used that a fair number of times. It tones down patterned paper, and it works great. So one thing to know, and I'm going to show you with our gesso, I'm going to start with the white, just so I can show you, and hopefully it'll show up because we are using white on white. I'll also show you on a patterned piece of paper as well. So I'm going to open up our white gesso, and just using a knife here, we are going to take out some of the gesso, and what I tend to do is just put it on my page. This is if you're going to do a full page that's gessoed. Just get that out of the way. What I like to use with this is you can use any kind of a card that you might have. I like to use old hotel cards. So you just scoop it around, try and go in the same direction. You don't need a whole lot, and whatever you don't use, you can always scoop it back into the container. One thing to know is, and I will show you as well, if you're using gesso on a with a stencil, you definitely need to go in one direction. So I will show you that as well. It's kind of important. So we'll get all of this on here. This last little bit, I'm not going to go in one direction just because we're at the end. And then you just scoop that off. So that's how that works, and that's just on your page. You can do this in your art journals, you can do this on tags, you can do this on papers, pretty much any item you choose, to be honest. So we're going to set that aside to dry. And I'm just going to wipe this off. So now I'm going to show you this out. Okay. So now I'm going to show you on a piece of pattern paper. And I'm going to just use one little area, and I'm going to use my palette knife. You don't need a lot. So, and basically this just takes it a whole new level where it's going to white out some of your area on your page, and it's just kind of muting it a little bit. I was going to use this for a Halloween layout. I wanted it muted a little bit so I can add my elements and whatnot onto here. So this works great for that. So you can see how that works. I'll just set that aside to dry. All right, so you can put down your stencil. As you can see, I didn't clean this one great. You can put down your washi tape just at the top of your stencil because we're going to be going in one direction. So just put it wherever you want it to go. And then add your gesso. And I'm just going to add it into the middle. Okay, I'm not filling up my whole stencil. So now we're going to lift it. And there's our gesso bit. So let that dry. Show you some of our other items and the difference between just regular black gesso and a heavy black gesso. One thing about gesso is less is always more. You can always add more gesso onto your item, but you can't take it off. So I'm going to show you on this white piece of paper. I wouldn't normally put black on white, but I'm going to show you so it shows up and you can see. So with our golden, which is a premium brand of gesso, I will show you. It is pretty loose and wet. So that is the black gesso from Golden. The next one we're going to use is the Dina Wakley Media Black Gesso. And as you can see, it's a little thicker. And you can tell just putting it on, it is a thicker gesso. Now with the Prima, the heavy gesso, we will put that on. And it clearly states it is a heavy gesso. Comes out a little thinner than the Dina Wakley. And goes on smooth. So with all of these, honestly, I think the heaviest of the three is the Dina Wakley Media, the black gesso, and it doesn't even say it's a heavy gesso, but it does go on heavier than the other two. So this is how black gesso goes on, and it's actually quite nice. So that's black gesso for you. Now I'm going to show you the clear gesso from Ella and Viv. I love it. It's the graffiti. And we're going to put down our clear gesso. So I'm going to grab a stencil that I think is kind of cool. We're going to use this one here. And we are going to use some washi tape and tack that down. Alright, so we're going to get out our clear gesso. And again, clear gesso is awesome because it will put your image from your stencil onto your piece of paper, but it will not cover up necessarily what you have behind, which is what I'm looking for. So we are going to pop our clear gesso on, and I'm going to use a different knife. This again is the Dina Wakley Media Clear Gesso. I'm going to put it on here. Probably have way too much, which I shouldn't, but there we go. And I'm going to grab a new card, and we are going to just move this over a little bit. And the main reason you want to go in one direction also with these is because you don't want it to get under your stencil. So now you can just start pulling. Put the gesso in there and just pull it down. If you need more, you can always add more, but you can't take it off, so you don't want to add too much. There we go. And then when you were done, you can put the leftover back in your card or into your thing. All right, so now we're done with that. We're just going to pull up our stencil. I can get it up here with my fingernails, and you're not going to be able to see it right away because again it is clear, but it is there. So if you go over it later with some ink or Distress Oxides or whatnot, it will be there and you can color it whatever color you want. So that's kind of cool. Another thing you can do, and I will show you on our black gesso sheet. One thing you can do is you can make your own colors. Many of the gessos come in colors themselves from the different manufacturers, but you can also make your own. So I will show you how you can do that. To make your own colored gesso, grab your white gesso, you don't need a whole lot depending on what it is you're doing. And you can grab your paint. So I am going to use today, should give it a good shake actually. I'm going to use the Fresco Finish Deep Sea from Paper Artsy. And this is a chalk paint, so, and that's also what gesso is a chalk. So we're going to add just a couple drops into our gesso, and we can mix it. Give it a good little mix. And there you go, there you have your gesso, and I will show you how that looks. And I'm just going to put it over top of what we had here. So hopefully this doesn't bleed too bad because I'm not tacking it down great, but it'll give you an idea of just how it looks. So we're going to grab our card that we used before and just pull it down. There we go. So we lift that up. And it bled a little bit at the top because I wasn't holding it down, and our stencil is also wet. But that'll give you an idea. So you can make your own colored gesso if you want to. Gesso, unless you're using a heavy gesso, is a lot thinner than using a modeling paste. You could use modeling paste if you didn't want to use something like that. But Gesso is a primer, and like I said before, it works great with using it underneath any of your mixed media mediums you're going to use. So I recommend using Gesso. I use Gesso on a good majority of my projects. Again, they come in all different colors and different sizes, so you can get those from your local art supplier or from a scrapbook store or crafting store. Again, there's different ones like Golden, the Canadian brand Demco, or you can get other ones like Dina Wakley Media, Prima. Most of these scrapbooking lines have Gessos. I know Ranger has it, and again we had our clear Gesso. So I hope this helped you a little bit with trying to figure out what you use Gesso for. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ever email me. You can email me at irememberwhen@shaw.ca. I hope you enjoyed our videos, and happy crafting, and have a great day.